Turkey has been quietly ripping itself apart, and for decades, scientists didn't realize it. The mistake wasn't small. Researchers misunderstood how a huge section of Earth's crust was moving. What they believed was sliding sideways is actually stretching open, millimeter by millimeter, as if the planet is slowly pulling itself in two. And once this kind of tearing is recognized, it starts showing up in many other places on Earth. To see why this discovery shocked geologists, imagine Earth's crust as a cracked eggshell floating on a soft, heated layer beneath it. Those cracked pieces are tectonic plates. They move only a few inches per year, but over millions of years, that tiny motion reshapes continents. Turkey lies in one of the most stressful positions on the planet, trapped between three massive plates: Eurasia to the north, Africa to the south, and Arabia pushing from the southeast. For years, scientists assumed Turkey relieved this pressure by sliding sideways along faults. These are called strike-slip faults, where two blocks of land scrape past each other like rubbing palms. The famous North Anatolian Fault works this way and has produced devastating earthquakes. The model seems simple. Pressure builds. Land shifts sideways. Problem solved. But Earth rarely follows simple rules. Hidden beneath farmland and salt flats in central Turkey is a long fracture that didn't behave like a typical sideways fault, so it drew little attention. Then researchers took a closer look, not by studying earthquakes, but by examining ancient lava flows. Thousands of years ago, lava crossed this fault and hardened into rock. Later, the fault split those rocks apart. Inside the cooled lava are tiny crystals called zircons, which act like natural clocks. They trap radioactive elements that decay at known rates, allowing scientists to date when the lava solidified. By matching lava on both sides of the fracture and measuring how far it had separated, the team reconstructed the fault's motion over thousands of years. The result was unexpected. The fault wasn't sliding sideways at all. It was slowly pulling apart. Only fractions of an inch per year, but over geological time, that adds up to enormous change. This is known as an extensional fault, where the crust stretches until it thins and breaks. In simple terms, Turkey is not only being squeezed, it is also being torn open. And that's only part of the story. Other research shows that sections of Turkey's crust are sinking downward into the mantle below. Dense material peels off and drips into the hotter layer beneath, like wax blobs in a lava lamp. Scientists call this process lithospheric dripping. As this happens, the surface above becomes weaker, rising, sinking, cracking, and shifting. Earthquakes don't always require plates to collide. Sometimes the ground collapses because its deep support structure disappears. Turkey's crust now looks less like a solid slab and more like stretched candy over heat. This kind of geological drama isn't limited to Turkey. Africa is also slowly splitting apart. Not fast enough for humans to witness an ocean appear, but fast enough for scientists to measure the motion today. Deep beneath East Africa, the crust is thinning and stretching. Over millions of years, this process can completely rewrite geography. This zone is called the East African Rift System, and it runs thousands of miles across countries such as Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Mozambique. It is one of the largest rift systems on Earth, and it has been pulling apart for tens of millions of years. Africa is no longer acting as a single plate. It is dividing into two: the Nubian plate to the west and the Somali plate to the east. They are drifting apart at about the same speed fingernails grow. That sounds slow, but across millions of years, it becomes dramatic. In 2018, images of a massive crack in Kenya went viral, leading many to believe Africa was suddenly splitting in half. In reality, That specific crack was caused by erosion and heavy rains washing away volcanic ash, not plate movement. Still, the bigger picture remains true. Africa is breaking apart. In Ethiopia's Afar region, hundreds of earthquakes in 2005 opened a giant fissure in just days, doing in weeks what normally takes centuries. Entire communities were damaged, schools destroyed, and infrastructure ruined. Eventually, seawater could flood this rift and form a new ocean. Countries that are landlocked today may one day have coastlines. But this transformation will take millions of years. Elsewhere, India is undergoing a different kind of splitting as it crashes into Eurasia. This collision built the Himalayas and lifted the Tibetan Plateau. Scientists long debated how Tibet became so high. One theory now suggests that India's plate is peeling apart vertically. Its upper layer lifts the surface, while the heavier lower layer sinks into the mantle. Earth is not finished, still under construction.